I think that the biggest mistake many students make when coming to language paper 1 question 5 has to be not fully understanding what the question wants. So when I say this, it not means like students aren't reading the question correctly, because I think they understand it has to be around the theme. But basically what that really means, first of all, they want a story or description, but in this case you want to do a story and they don't want a script. Because I think many people nowadays, not many people read books anymore, especially the younger generation, they mainly watch films. And with films there's no description in it. Maybe you get the narrator saying the odd thing or two, that's usually based on the story. But in films, there's no real way to communicate the surroundings apart from scenery and dialogue. Dialogue is the main key thing that drives a plot forward in many scenarios of series, TV shows, films. And basically, films rely heavily on dialogue to carry out emotions, to carry out actions, to set context. So when they come to this question, they have the mindset that they need to write dialogue for this to communicate their message, to further the story. But in actuality, this is a story and not a script. And with stories, you can be a lot more descriptive. You can be a lot more, mask what they're saying. You can show, not tell, is what many people say. But there can be a lot more complex when it comes to story. And dialogue is more put at the second hand. So for example, let's say that this prompt that you've got is about an argument. Now, a lot of people may fall into the trap of just writing out the argument. But does the dialogue show that comprehensive understanding of the English vocabulary, different techniques? Not really. It shows you that dialogue, but that's about it. Really, what you should be doing is taking this prompt, because all you have to do is write something about an argument. And now this argument doesn't necessarily have to be during the argument. It could, if you're smart, you can do the aftermath of the argument first, have a flashback to how the argument happened, or perhaps you just start from how the argument happened. And when it comes to the argument, you'd be a bit more descriptive, more instead of focusing on what they're saying, how they're saying it, the body language, how their face looks, how the eye contact is, things all like that, and that's going to be crucial. But let's say you don't want any of those flashbacks or any preposition, exposition stuff, basically directly on the argument. Say what you can do if you want an argument that results in someone getting shot at the end. Basically, what you can do is maybe focus a little bit on the people, but maybe add a perspective to someone maybe outside the door that's listening into the conversation. You can describe their voices as muffled, because just having a perspective shift in there is going to get you a lot more marks of structural features than if you just constantly keep it on one type of person. So in summary, try not to go too ham on the dialogue. Try and keep it more descriptive based. Try and use similes and metaphors. And a good way you could do that is to describe an emotion as something else. For example, anxiety could be darkness, or could be some sort of massive object like a mountain which they have to conquer. Or perhaps happiness could be, generic. You can use perfect fallacy of happy clouds and rainbows, but perhaps it could be a nice memory. Perhaps it could be an animal, a person, which personifies their happiness. And so just making emotions as actual people is going to get you a lot of marks for technicality. And just try and be creative, have fun of it, because the more fun you have, the more invested you're going to be into writing a good story, and the more invested the examiner is going to be in the story. Maybe have some key progression, but it isn't like an action movie. As I said, you don't have to add too many things. That's another thing where students go wrong. They try and make too much in their story. Not enough stuff has to happen to keep attention. It can be very small changes, but as long as there's a constant progression from the start to the end, that's what's going to get the marks. That's what gets the structure marks, and that's how you make a good story.